So welcome everyone to our webinar. Again, my name is Paul Novak. I'm the founder and CEO here at Iris Reading, broadcasting today from Miami. That's where I live. Although I always think of Chicago as my hometown. I lived there for most of my life. I'm curious to know where you guys are joining us from. So let me know in the chat. What city are you joining us from? We usually have people from all over the place. And I'm always just kind of curious because when you do this as a webinar, people can join from pretty much anywhere. Now, since our topic is focus, and since what we do at Iris Reading is obviously very much reading related and learning, or the way I like to think of it is our mission is to help people learn how to learn. And not many people are taught how to learn. We're told, or we're taught how to read at a young age, but there's very little in terms of, I think, follow-up on that, like learning advanced level reading skills. I had teachers left and right telling me, memorize this, memorize that. I rarely ever had someone tell me, here's how you memorize something. So in previous webinars and sessions we've done on topics like memory, we focus obviously on speed. We do speed reading workshops. I see Jonathan joining us from Orange County. I see someone else from Mississippi. What else we got here? San Francisco, New York, London. Awesome. Very nice. Welcome. Comprehension. That's the other thing, right? And then retention. We talked about this in previous sessions, how we want all three of these areas to be as solid as possible. But today's topic is focus. And if we're not focused, we can't have any of these things, right? You're not going to be able to read faster if you're not focused. You're not going to be able to comprehend, right, if you lack focus. And of course, you're not going to be able to retain it or remember anything. So what else? I see people, Toronto, cool. Sophia, Los Angeles, very nice. Again, welcome everyone. And since our topic is focus, I want you to think of focus as a skill. Here's why I say that. Because I get people all the time tell me, you know, I have a mild or major form of ADHD. And it is true, this is a real kind of condition that people struggle with. However, I want you to know that your focus is something that you can work on. It's a skill. Any kind of skill can be improved. That's obviously why we're here today. So first, and this is kind of like goes without saying, I guess, but I want to remind everyone the thought of reducing distractions. There are some distractions that we have no power or control over, right? Things that, you know, emergencies that happen, things like that. I had an emergency this week and it threw off my schedule, and there's all sorts of things that we can't control. However, there are distractions that we can control. And I mean, whatever social media vice you may have, whether it's, you know, some people are addicted to TikTok or Instagram or Reddit, YouTube. I mean, all these things can be used usefully. Like for me, I browse Reddit quite a bit, fortunately and unfortunately, by form of entertainment, but I also use Reddit for work related. There's all sorts of subreddits I subscribe to that are like small business related, subreddits related to psychology and studying. And those are things that interest me and they're somewhat work related, but it's so easy to kill and waste time on something like Reddit or other whatever platforms are out there. So I always tell people to try and eliminate those distractions ahead of time. One of the most common ones we all have are the phone distractions, right? Now, if I get a text message or a phone call, I want to know about it, right? But I don't need to get like, you know, some special offer notification from some app. Or, I mean, a lot of times we sometimes turn on these notifications without realizing it. And the ones you may want to keep are, okay, an Uber, I want to be reminded when, you know, the driver is close or something like that. But a lot of these other things are just totally unnecessary. Same thing like breaking news. I check news once a day and read up on the news. It's usually towards the end of the workday. That's when I like to look at my news. Some people do it first thing in the morning, but I definitely don't want news notifications. I mean, if something major is happening, like a severe weather alert, I'm going to hear about it. Okay, so where you do that, obviously, if you have an Android phone or if you have an iPhone, you can go into the settings and click on notifications and then modify it from there. But then let's go beyond this. Eliminating distractions, that seems obvious, but when it comes to focus, think about this. How long can you focus on something before you hit like your breaking point? Like if I asked you to read for a long period of time, at what point would you kind of get antsy or feel like you got really, I can't focus anymore? No, it's different for everyone. Some people it might be 30 minutes, other people it might be an hour, or some people it might be 10 minutes before their mind is just fried. But I want you to think about this because there is a little bit of research related to it that indicates for most people, they can focus on one thing at a time for about 25 minutes before they hit their breaking point. So there's this strategy where you alternate between focusing on something for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. Let me know in the comments, how long can you focus before you break? Okay. For most people, it's around 25 minutes. Now, this is sometimes referred to as the Pomodoro Technique, where you do 25 minutes of focus, 5-minute break, and it is useful. Some people like the structure of that. For other people, they feel like 25 minutes, they can go beyond that. Some people will do 45 minutes of focus and then a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute break. It doesn't have to round up to an hour or half an hour, but if you're wondering why it's called the Pomodoro Technique, the person that coined the term was an Italian guy, and he noticed he had this kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato, and he noticed that when he was studying, he could be a little more effective with his studying when he set it to 25 minutes and then took a 5-minute break. So that's why Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato. It's probably not pronounced that way. Maybe it's pronounced like Pomodoro. Kind of exaggerating the Italian accent there, but you get the idea. There's a bunch of Pomodoro apps actually out there. If you go to the App Store on Android or iPhone, you will inevitably find, if you search Pomodoro, you'll find these apps that are out there. Let me show you actually one that I like recommending. If you go to, you know how you could find like Google extensions or the Chrome Web Store, that's what they call it. So if you go on here and you just search at the top for, you'll find a bunch. Pomodoro timer. There's a bunch of them here. Let me tell you the one I recommend. And the link is in the description of this video on YouTube, but I'll also provide you with the link. Hang on one second here. Just had it. Where was it? It was this one, I believe. Yeah, I want to show you how to use this. Let me double check and make sure. So here's first, you add it to Chrome. You got to hit the add extension. You're going to see it pop up at the top there. You see it right there? So then when I exit from here, it's going to minimize this. So it's going to disappear for a moment. Watch. Okay, you got to go back into this menu to see it. You got to scroll down, look for it. Ah, there it is right there, Pomodoro timer. Now I'm going to hit this little button right here that pins it to the menu. You see at the top. Now, when I go and let's say I click on it, notice what you can do. You can set the timer for whatever you want. You can also create a little list here if you want to add something. I don't know, maybe it's like read chapter 5. Okay, maybe that's my task. Can't even spell today like this, disaster. Okay, read chapter 5, and I could give it a description. You could set the timer, stats, whoops, go back to it. Start Pomodoro, read chapter 5, boom. And then you got your breaks that can come in. So this is just a timer. You could add a list, things like that, but there's a bunch of them. I'm just bringing this up, but you can find whatever. I don't want to promote one single one. There's a lot of them out there. I used to use one called Nucleus, but then they took it off the App Store. Actually, it looks similar to this. Maybe they just changed the branding. If I go here, let's add it. So you see it at the top now, that red icon, it's going to disappear. We're going to find it right over there. And now if I click on this one, I should be able to have a little timer there. You see this? So you can add tasks, things like that. I think that's helpful. And you can just start your 25 minutes right there. And it goes, it'll give you a little ding when you're done. But I'm bringing this up, whatever you use. I mean, I've used this Pomodoro technique by simply using the timer on my phone. And that's totally fine too. But the idea is the same. We're breaking up our work into areas where we can focus, and then your brain needs that rest. Speaking of focus, we brought this up in the speed reading workshop about how to focus while reading, and it was the idea was using your hand as a guide. I didn't bring up the science behind why that works, so I want to go over that real quick with you. So this is when you're reading printed material. I've got a really good book here called The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of the World Order by Samuel Huntington. All right, so if you're reading this, using your hand is very easy, right? Because I mean, it's attached to you, or you could use your finger, or some people prefer to use like a pen. And the idea is because our eyes are attracted to motion, we're going to be more focused because something's moving around. The science behind it has to do with eye movements. So your eyes have two types of movements. That's for all human beings. One is called a saccadic eye movement, and the other is called a smooth pursuit. So what's the difference between saccadic and smooth pursuit? Well, the smooth pursuit, that happens when things are moving around. So if you're looking out the window, watching a car drive down the road, your eyes are going to move in this fashion. Now, saccadic happens when there's no movement. So I'm in a room right now, everything is stationary. And if I'm just looking around the room, because nothing's moving around, my eyes would move in what's called a saccadic movement. Let me show you that. Here is a saccadic eye movement. Notice those little stops. They're very quick. That's how your eyes are moving when you're reading like this, normally. When you're reading a little differently with your hand or your finger, your eyes will respond to that movement and they'll move in a smooth pursuit like this. Now, you're not going to be able to feel it, but rest assured, your eyes are moving this way when you're using your hand or your finger or a pen to guide your eyes. I could show you them side by side and you'll very easily be able to tell the difference, right? Which one is smoother, right? So I wanted to bring that up because that's part of the, when you tell people use your hand as a guide, why? Because your eyes are attracted to motion. Well, this is another reason why you would want to do it. The smooth pursuit, it lends itself to more focus. In other words, we pay more attention to things that move around so much that our eyes actually move differently in those kind of circumstances. So that's why you want to do this on your reading on a printed page. Next way to improve focus has to do with deadlines. When you give yourself a deadline or when a deadline is imposed upon you, it can increase your level of focus. I'll give you a great example I think most of us have experienced. Remember back in school when you had to do a paper and it was due in like a couple weeks? Did you start that paper right away? Probably not. Okay. For me, I remember this one instance where I had a paper that was due on a Sunday. It was assigned like 2 weeks earlier, 8-page paper. It was due on a Sunday night. It had to be emailed to the professor by midnight. And he even told us it was a very firm deadline. He said, if it comes into my inbox after midnight, I'm just going to delete it. I'm not even going to consider it. So anyway, so it's due Sunday night, and I had this experience on a Friday where I remembered, oh yeah, I got to do that paper this weekend. I'll work on it tomorrow. You're right. I'll do it tomorrow. Procrastination, classic. Saturday comes and goes, and I totally forgot to do the paper. And all of a sudden it's Sunday, and it had slipped my mind. All of a sudden it's like 3 p.m. and all of a sudden I randomly think of it. Oh my God, I have a paper due in a few hours by midnight. So what happened to my focus? Or if you've experienced this, what happens when you're up against that firm deadline? You all of a sudden sharpen your focus like crazy. I turn off my phone, lock myself in the room, no distractions whatsoever, just go. That's the power of a deadline on your focus. So how do we take advantage of this? Well, you could do it with regard to reading. Let's say you're reading a page or a screen of text. How long does it take you to read all this? Measure your time. Just use the timer on your phone or the stopwatch on your phone. So let's say I read a page or I read the screen of text and I realize, oh, it took me 1 minute and 20 seconds. Okay, interesting. Now that I know that, now that I'm conscious of the number, I'm going to try to beat this number. Next page, I'm going to read, I'm going to time myself, and maybe this time, because I'm conscious of the time, all of a sudden, I finish it in 1 minute 17. Hey, that's a little faster. You're kind of like gamifying the process of reading here. How long is it going to take me to read another page or 2 pages, or in this case, it's a screen of text? We try it again. Maybe now we're at 1 minute 15. So we started at minute 20. Now we're doing minute 15. What's going to happen is because you have like these sort of kind of like a fake deadline, it will improve your focus while you're reading. You might get to 1 minute 11 or 1 minute and 7 seconds. You'll get faster and more efficient just because of being conscious of the time. It's just like when I step on a scale, if I do it, I'm more likely to make better choices about food, healthier options than if I didn't step on the scale, because I'm conscious of like my weight, right? Now, other ways to concentrate. This is actually a note-taking exercise that can help you focus. Now, let's say you're reading and you're just, for whatever reason, you're struggling to concentrate. One of the things you can do to get better concentration is something we call the read and recall method. What it revolves around is forcing yourself to take notes at predetermined times. So every time you finish maybe a section of text, you take some notes. Next page, finish that section, you see the green mark, that's where I would stop, take a note. Now, even if I'm reading this and there's no reason for me to take notes, I'm just forcing myself to take notes, because what happens is the moment you start trying to write something down, you're asking yourself, what did I just read? And that reflection, it helps your memory, but this can help your concentration too, because you're kind of holding yourself accountable. Now, if you don't do this, here's what happens. You know, when your mind wanders off while you're reading, it's happened to everyone, right? You're reading something, you're not paying attention. Well, the moment your mind starts wandering off, you don't know when that moment is. Eventually, after you've been reading for a while, you catch yourself and you're like, hold on, none of this is clicking. I got to go back and reread. But how far back do I need to go? Do I need to go back 1 page, 3 pages, 10 pages? How long has my mind been wandering? I don't know. So what happens if you do this method here, every time you finish a section, you finish a section, you finish another section, you're forcing yourself to take notes. Now, let's say I start reading over here through this paragraph and my mind starts to wander. And it's still wandering, I'm reading, or I think I'm reading. Eventually I catch myself like, hold on, go back, reread. How far back do I need to go? Just right up to here, right? Because I know I took notes at this moment. So you might even put little marks at the end of sections to remind yourself to, hey, take a note, take a note. So this can be very, very helpful. One other thing with regard to focus is identifying when is it that you're most productive. Is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? Is it the evening, late night? Let me know in the comments, or give me a comment. What is your peak performance time? For me, it used to be at night. And then as I got older and I became a dad, it started becoming the morning when I feel most focused. Now, it might take a few moments after I wake up, but knowing when you're most focused can be a good way to figure out, okay, when should I schedule those important projects? Now, there's one other myth related to focus about like multitasking. Some people think that when you multitask, you're just being more productive, or some people are forced into multitasking based on the work that they do. However, I want you to know that usually multitasking does not result in better productivity. A lot of times there's what they call switching costs. The cost of switching and then getting back into the rhythm. Have you ever been in the zone on something, right? That's a great feeling, right? Some people call it the flow state, right? I see Jonathan mentioned same morning is the period of time where you're most focused. Awesome. Yeah, some people said I see some people saying night. I see a lot of like morning or night. I don't see a lot of afternoon. Most people will say like morning or night. It's interesting. So there's a different concept, which is single tasking, where you just force yourself, hey, I'm just going to focus on this and I cannot switch to anything else. I'm not going to take a break to check my email, check text message. You just focus on finishing something. Another very important thing is to let people know that you'll be busy. If you do this, people will try not to interrupt you. Otherwise, it's so easy to interrupt someone. Like, hey, I just saw this hilarious video. Let me share it with so-and-so, or let me show you this. If someone knows that you're going to be occupied, that you need to focus, they'll usually let you do it. One thing I used to do when I used to work in a cubicle in the office environment, I used to put headphones on. Sometimes I didn't even have any music on. But when I had headphones on, if somebody was going to walk past my desk and like interrupt me, if they saw me with headphones on, they just assumed that I had something really important to focus on. So letting people know. There's also this concept of, and this can help with focus. You know how you got a task list? Well, the task list, mine is like a never ending task. I literally have like hundreds of tasks that are, some I probably forgot to check off. I use a program called Asana to manage my tasks. By the way, let us know in the chat what programs you might use. I'm curious. But Asana is just a task management platform, but I always have what we call an MIT, most important tasks. There can never be more than 3. I usually set that list the night before, and I'll work on it in the morning. Now, it's usually either 1, 2, or 3 tasks. The reality is I have way more than 3 tasks to do every day, But these are the things that I feel like, okay, if I did this, I'll feel like I accomplished something. If I did this one thing or these two things, three. And then of course, when we're done with that list, we can get to the other things or we can make another one. I see Jonathan mentions he uses Google Calendar a lot. Definitely on my list of recommendations. If you use, it doesn't have to be Google Calendar. It could be practically any calendar. Actually, one of my next slides here is use a calendar. Most calendar programs, Google Calendar being a more popular one, they allow you to have multiple calendars. So you could have, I have one calendar just called birthdays. I have another calendar, which is our schedule. And that's just classes that we have assigned for organizationally. I may or may not be teaching every class, but they're assigned to different people. And then I have my personal calendar, which is like, okay, these are classes that I'm teaching. There's my dental appointments. There's my, my kids' appointments would be on there too. So using a calendar app is highly recommended if you're not doing that. By the way, I also have a books calendar. I'll explain what I do with that in a few moments here. But circling back to another concept related to focus and productivity, there is this concept called eat the frog. And it just means doing the hardest thing first. The idea behind it is like, whatever is the thing that you dread that you kind of don't want to do, you start with that first. And if you do the hardest thing first, the rest of your day will seem easy. That's the psychology behind doing this. By the way, there's also an opposite version of this for when you are feeling overwhelmed. You ever have that? Like it can feel like paralysis. You're like, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do. I don't even know where to start. Well, then the answer is just do the easiest thing. Maybe the easiest thing is checking email. Maybe the easiest thing is something else. But I want you to know there's different ways of thinking of this. There's multiple solutions is what I'm trying to say to being productive and focused. So using a calendar, certainly that. By the way, since our topic was focus, one other thing I wanted to mention was we have this book that this author has given us permission to freely distribute. Leo Babauta, he wrote this really good book called Focus, a simplicity manifesto in the age of distraction. So if you're looking for some further recommended reading, I'd recommend that. If you want the free version of the PDF of that book, which the author has given permission to freely distribute, you can shoot me an email and I'll send it back to you. I think it's a great read if you're looking for some additional content beyond this session. Also, I want you to know that we're going to be doing more of these live streams. So if you're interested in certain topics you want us to focus on, we'll be doing more of these. You subscribe on YouTube, that's where you can find it. Just search for my name on there, Paul Novak. It's pronounced Novak, like a V there, but spelled with a W. You can also just email me, paul@irisreading.com, if you want me to send you that book, or if you want to, follow us on any of these other channels or platforms, by all means, feel free. If you go to the website today, there is a special offer. We did a Cyber Monday deep discount on all the online courses. If you go to the website, irisreading.com, and you just click over to courses at the top, that's where you can find any of these courses. Maybe you want to take one of the online ones. Maybe you want to take a class live. We do these classes all over the place, as you can see here. And see if we have a class in your city. You could sign up there. Or if you want to do a one-on-one session with me or one of the other instructors we have, by all means, feel free to do that. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we extended that Cyber Monday deal into today. And thank you all so much for your support and your questions and your comments. Wishing you all the best. Hope this has been helpful information. And if you like what we're doing at Iris, tell your friends. And if you don't like it, tell your enemies. Anyway, have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk soon. Take care.